Okay, hi everybody. I'm Adena Bank Lees and I'm waiting for the camera to start. And right now, here I am. So welcome aboard. Good to have everybody. Thanks a lot for being here. And we're going to be taking a look at the internal family systems therapy model and the piece called the 8 C's of self-leadership, because these are the strengths that we have in order to deal with, as we have, challenging times right now. So I'd like to look at the agenda, and here's our welcome. I'll tell you a little bit about me. We have, I'm going to do a brief breathing meditation with you to help you get centered and for us to be really in that optimal zone of the window of tolerance, which is when we're thinking and feeling at the same time, so we can learn the best possible. And I'll go over some of the, I'll go over some of the IFS basics with you so you have a foundation of what's happening. We'll take a look at what the 8 C's are. And then I have a psychodramatic surprise for you because I am a psychodramatist, and the way that I think is best to learn is through experience. And so we'll do a little bit of that. We'll have some questions and answers, and then we'll do our closing. And I will check in with you throughout if there's any clarification or if you don't understand something. I'll put a question out and you can write something in the chat because I want you to be able to follow me and not get lost in this. And then we'll go for specific questions at the end. So any specific questions you might have, if you could save it for about 10 minutes to 20 after 12, that would be really helpful. And then we'll go for questions the last 10 minutes. All right, so tell you just a little bit about me. So I am the psychodrama facilitator here at Sierra Tucson, and I'm also a trainer, consultant, speaker, and author. And I love presenting. I love being able to give information and share experiences with people so that they can take it into their lives and use it, whether you're a professional and using it with clients and or in your personal life. So let's do our breathing and feeling meditation, actually. So if you put your feet on the ground, if you get as comfortable as you can in your chair, I'm assuming you're sitting, maybe you're lying down, and close your eyes or look down just to minimize distraction. And as you do that, I'd like you to take a nice deep breath in through your nose, hold it, and let it out slower, either through your nose or your mouth. And then take another one in, hold it, and release it slower. And we'll do one more. In through the nose, hold it, and release it slower. Just breathe normally, and I invite you to set an intention for yourself for the presentation. So for example, I intend to be clear and present all information that's necessary for you in this hour. So what is your intention for this hour for yourself? Take a moment and identify that intention. And if you choose to write it in the box, I might read some of them, just to know what's happening here and who's here and where you're at. So as we're kind of waiting, if anybody wants to write that, I also ask you to keep breathing. Excuse me. And one of the things I was talking to Courtney about earlier was, I am a presenter, I am not an IT person. So I am practicing trying to do this, and I would ask for your patience, which is not one of the 8 C's, but it's definitely an important P as a part of being able to take care of it ourselves and thrive during these challenging times. So I ask you for your patience. And I have somebody who said to remain open to the experience and learn something new as their intention. So that's awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm going to go to the next slide. If it goes, and we want 3, there you go. So the IFS basics, it's really important for you to know that Dr. Richard Schwartz is the developer of the internal family systems model, and that's where the 8 C's come from. And Dr. Schwartz developed this model. It's very interesting, and he tells the story that he is a trained structural family therapist. So I think he trained with Sal Minuchin and some of those people back in the 70s. And he was working specifically with a female eating disordered population. And what we know is oftentimes when you work, especially with adolescents, young adults, you work with the family system with eating disorders. And so he was doing that, and his patients or clients were committing to, let's say, not purge for the week in between sessions. And he found that they were coming in and they were saying to him, I know I made the commitment, but there was a part of me that just couldn't not do it. There was a part of me that was telling me I had to purge, or I had to restrict, or I had to take that second bite, or compulsively eat, or whatever it was. So he was listening, and that was one of his great skills. And he was hearing over and over, there was a part of me that. And there was a part of me that was scared, and there's a part of me. So he started thinking, you know what? We may all have parts of us. And he also worked with people with significant trauma, which we know really akin to eating disorders. And he worked with some people who had severe dissociative disorders, where we know that there can be very distinct parts of that person that develop in order to cope with the trauma that they experienced. And so he came up with, you know what? I think all of us have parts. And so what that means is multiplicity is normal. It's part of the developmental process. Does that mean we all have something like dissociative identity disorder? No. It means we can all say, I have a part of me. And that's pretty common language. Part of me likes this, a part of me doesn't like that. And what he also found was that the earlier traumatic experience happened, the longer it went on for, the more distinct people's parts became as part of what he calls this internal family system, since he was a family systems therapist. And that this system works as a system together in order to help the person survive the situations that they're in and the experiences they experience and the feelings they feel. So I want to just stop for a second and ask, anybody can put it in the question part or the answer part, is there any clarification that you need on that right now before I move forward? Because again, I want you to stay with me. So if there's anything, and I'm looking down for a second because I want to see if anybody's writing anything and if anything needs to be clarified. So far we have parts of ourselves, multiplicity is normal. Trauma creates more distinct parts. And the last piece, since I don't see anything coming up in the box, no questions, then we're going to go to the self, right? And this is such a critical part of Dr. Schwartz's model. And he talks about the self being the actual core of the person, the core of the being. And he's doing a lot of work right now with people like Jack Kornfield, Tara Brach, in the Buddhist spiritual community to talk about the self and explore the self as spiritual energy. It's something that we all come into the world with. And what happens is that experiences show up where we're hurt, where we're betrayed, where we're humiliated, terrified, etc. And those kinds of things start to cover up those 8 C's, or the pieces of self. And so it's not that we don't have those that make up the self, but it's that it's covered up with a lot of crap, basically. And so early on, when I was learning about Dr. Schwartz's model back in the mid-90s, one of the things he said was, when we work with people with a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, we often say that they don't have a self, And that's one of the pieces that we want to help them is to develop that self, that ego strength. And he said, wrong thinking. This goes along with Colin Ross also, who talked about borderline personality disorder really as not being a personality disorder, but being a trauma-based dissociative disorder. And so we look at it in terms of trauma, and most of us do now. We didn't back then. And so Dr. Schwartz says somebody who has that trauma response absolutely has a self with a capital S. It's just covered over. And our job is to help them to take away the debris, the traumatic experiences, the feelings, the flashbacks, the negative thoughts, etc., and all those symptoms so that they can experience the core of who they are. And the self is the energy that we can be in to help heal the wounded parts of us. And the wounded parts of us are usually very young parts, and we get stuck developmentally at the stage or the age we were when we were traumatized. So I'm just going to say that again because I think that's important. So the self, those 8 C's of self-leadership that make up the core part of you, the self, is the energy, are the energies for us to be in order to heal the wounded parts of ourselves. So I just want to give you an example of that briefly. So in the beginning of my recovery, one of the parts of myself that was very wounded was my 9-year-old. She carried a lot of shame, she carried humiliation, she carried anger, and for a lot of years, I wanted to just push her away. I didn't want to feel those feelings. I didn't want to acknowledge that. And I used a lot of behaviors. I used drugs and alcohol. I used an eating disorder. I used a lot of behaviors to try to push her away and push those feelings away. And part of the recovery was to start to develop a relationship with her and to say, you know what, I have some compassion, because I didn't in the beginning. I was fearful of her and I didn't like her. And so at this point, I have tremendous compassion for this part of me. And that has been critical in the healing that I've done through IFS and psychodrama, which is my love now of really putting IFS in action. And you're going to experience a little bit of that later. So I just want to check with you and see if any of that makes sense. And just put in the chat, makes sense, doesn't make sense. Please clarify. I have somebody who says it makes sense, so I'm really happy, at least to one person. A couple of people, makes sense, makes sense. Thank you very much. All right. So we're going to go to our next slide. And when I click it, I think it's a double click. Okay. So also, you have a handout. There's the PowerPoint handout, and I also sent, and I'm not sure exactly how to get the handout, but I think Courtney may have said that. And on there, it talks about and gives you some definitions of some of the terms here. And you can also go to ifs-institute.com, and I got it from the website. It's just very simple, and I really encourage you to go to the website and check more out about IFS. There's so much to learn. But another very important piece here is he talks about burdens. And the burdens are the feelings, the memories, the pieces that keep us stuck and in pain. Okay? So our young parts are carrying burdens. They're carrying toxic shame. They're carrying horrendous memories, sensations, etc., that keep them stuck in the pain. And the goal is for us to get into those 8 C's that we're going to talk about, to be able to begin to heal those wounded parts, to take their burdens away, to unburden them is what the IFS term is, to relieve them of those burdens so they can be free. Here's the piece of psychodrama that comes in so that they can have spontaneity and creativity. They can be free. They can come up with adequate responses to a situation that's happening right now instead of relying on old tools in the now, the past in the present, because we know that's what trauma does, and we want to be in the present. So the healing equals unburdening of parts, increased spontaneity and creativity. And one of the things that Jacob Moreno, who was the founder of Psychodrama, said, and he actually wrote a book with this title, Who Shall Survive? He said that only the spontaneous and creative will survive. And I think we all know with COVID-19 and with what's happening in the world, that if we didn't come up with adaptations that were adequate, Zoom, other video platforms, and being able to connect with people, and if we're mental health practitioners, to be able to do the psychotherapy that we do through telehealth. If we're clients, I happen to be a therapist and a client, because my belief is if every good therapist has their own therapist, that as a client, it was really important to be able to be adaptable and allow my therapist to do this work with me through the computer. So we all know that that's really important. So psychodrama definition of spontaneity is an adequate response for a novel situation. And that's what I work on with clients here at Sierra Tucson, to be able to come into being able to practice having those adequate responses and leaving the past in the past. So here we are at the 8 C's. And before we go over those, again, please write in the box any clarification so far that you need before we go into this part. And I'll just take a moment. And I would invite all of us now to breathe and do your breath. Nose, hold, and out through your mouth or nose slower. And as we do this, we're connecting with our vagus nerve to help our body calm down, to help us be in that thinking and feeling state so we can learn the best. And let's do one more of those. So I have a question here. You said something about the age that the part emerged. All right. So usually what happens is that we get stuck at the age or the developmental stage of when we were traumatized. And that's when, and we talk about exiles, which are the parts of us that are really hurting and carrying a lot of those burdens, that those parts get stuck. And then adaptive parts get created or born in order to make sure that that exile, that's the word in IFS, that really wounded part gets protected from. So one of my questions is, when was this part born? And I don't think I'm going into exiles, protectors, etc. That's more specific of IFS than I can cover today, but you can definitely go to the website, and on the handout it has definitions of those. All right, so I hope that's helpful enough. And the 8 C's. So we have calm, we have curious, we have clear, we have compassionate, we have confident, we have courageous, and we have connected. And when I read these, I also think about Daniel Siegel, Dr. Dan Siegel, who was the founder of interpersonal neurobiology, talking about the wheel of awareness. And if you don't know about Dr. Daniel J. Siegel, S-I-E-G-E-L, and interpersonal neurobiology, the wheel of awareness practice, and you can just put that in the Google search and it will come up. He does a video leading you through that about the connectedness with self, with inner circle, with community, with globally, with universe, about how to be in that mindful state, which is what the 8 C's are about. So Dr. Siegel takes us to it in a little bit of a different way, where you can experience those 8 C's in that wheel of awareness practice. So these are the energies we want to sit in, we want to stand in, we want to experience, we want to be in order to assist our wounded parts. And again, there's some definitions of what these 8 C's mean on the IFS website, and you can go to that and check that out. And I'm going to go to a psychodramatic surprise, and I'm checking out time. Okay, we got plenty of time here. So this is what I would like us to do now. I'd like you to identify one of the 8 C's that you are experiencing in this moment. You might be experiencing more than that, but one of the 8 C's that you're experiencing in this moment. And I'd also like you to pay attention to where you feel it in your body. Might be all over, might be one place, a couple of places. Where are you feeling it in the body? Okay. Breathing with it and experiencing it for a moment. And people are already writing down the C that they're experiencing, and that's great. Keep doing that if you want. So we have calm, we have curious, we have someone who's experiencing their C in their lower abdominal area. So to be paying attention. So what we do also with trauma is we want to link up the body with the emotions, with the thoughts. And that's what we're doing in this moment. And IFS is always asking, and where in your body do you experience that? Because our parts and our core energies show up in our body. So calm, feeling in my head, feeling things in my head, clarity, calm in the chest. Okay, this is awesome. All right, curious in my head, creative, I have head thoughts. So we're going, the energy is going. So my next piece for you is my invitation to do something we call role reverse in psychodrama. And I'm gonna model this for you. So I'm gonna ask you to choose an item that's within arm's reach. And I think we asked you to come prepared with 3 items. And I'm gonna ask you to choose an item. And right here, I have a heart. And I have a very soft and fuzzy heart. And this heart represents my compassion that I'm experiencing right now. And I'm experiencing compassion for all the clients that I've worked with who have these wounded parts, who are trying to work with the 8 C's. Compassion for myself right now because I'm quite nervous and I don't know any of this technology, and that's okay. And so I'm going to role reverse with my compassion. So I'm going to be my compassion right now, and I'm going to say, Adena, the message I have for you right now is that you are okay just the way you are. So I'm going to ask you to take a moment, take your item, role reverse with your item, and give yourself the message. And as you're doing that, we're going to breathe. And it would be great when you have it, after you set it, to write it in the box. And we can see what messages we have from our group. And as we're breathing and doing this, we're staying in the present. We're in the 8 C's, which is helping to heal the inner parts of ourselves as well as others. Love for self. I am cleansed through my intake of all that is pure, simple, and healthy. I am lovable. Okay, beautiful. All right. So I'd like you to, I want to share with you that you are calm and today it will be okay. So these are such great pieces of one of the 8 C's. This is self-energy at its finest. I am okay. Right. So I'd like you to take your item and I'd like you to place it where you can see it. Okay. So that's the 8 C, one of the 8 C's you're experiencing right now. I would like you to now identify one of the 8 C's that is necessary for you in your own healing process. Your own healing, we're going personal now. Your own healing process. An 8C that's important for you to stand in, to experience, in order to help to heal any part of you that might be hurting right now, that might be scared right now, that might feel shame right now, that might be carrying any burdens. What we know about these challenging times is that there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anger, and how can we help to heal ourselves, which of course we know then goes to other people in our planet. So take a C, and I'm taking clarity. These are my glasses of clarity. So my 8C is clarity, and the message I have for Adena right now is that it's real clear that loving yourself and others is the answer. It's really clear. Go ahead and take that HC that you need to help to heal the part of you that's carrying the burden. We have calmness is necessary for me right now. Any other messages that are coming through from this C to help to heal a part of you? My experience is valid compassion. You are courageous and you can get through this. These are your healing energies. Creativity, make time for myself to create art for my healing. Courage leads me to change. It is clear that that love and connection to others are healing and dispels my fears. Compassionate towards my hurt self. Confident. It's okay not to be confident even though you have all you need. It's okay. It's important to have compassion for yourself as it is to have compassion for your clients. There we go. It's as important to have compassion for yourself as it is to have compassion for your clients. All right. So thank you for that. And the last C that we're going to concretize, that's what we call it in psychodrama, is we're making it tangible. We're concretizing it. We're putting it in action here, putting it out. Is going to be the C that if I'm a professional, well, whatever job you're doing, let's just say that. So whatever work you're doing, if it's volunteering, if it's being a mental health professional, if it's a teacher, if it is a caregiver, a doctor, anything, a salesperson, because I don't know who's on this call. What is the 8C that is most important for you to possess, to be in, to experience with the people you work with, your customers, your clients, your patients? What is the 8C? And I would say for me, it is, again, compassion. And so I have this, find your fearless, which is about courage, but also compassion. Be courageous enough to have compassion. And for me, this is about it's okay to cry, it's okay to be vulnerable. So what's the message? It's okay to cry and it's okay to be vulnerable, even though you're in the professional role, as long as you have your boundaries. That's my message. So please take your time. What is the 1-8C that's necessary for you in your work? And I have empathy and courage. I have compassion. What are the messages for you? Let us know what the 8C is and let us know the messages. And for those of us who are completed with this, I encourage you to breathe slowly, deeply. Do your breath in your nose, hold, and breathe out slower to keep you in that optimal zone, thinking and feeling at the same time. We have empathy, respect, confidence, curiosity about the client's experience. It's okay to grieve? Is it okay to grieve? Compassion for others and myself. All right. So a nice deep breath here. And I want to throw out, I have more. I am confident that I can assist others as they hope I will. Clarity about what my clients need. And I'll share with you briefly that one of the pieces that's so important to me when I work with clients is a couple of things that I do. One of them is I say a prayer before every group or every session that I have with a client to be in connectedness. And so that's one of the C's that's critically important. And connected for me with my heart, connected with my body, and connected with this creator of the universe, power greater than self, spirit of the universe, whatever you want to call it. But my prayer is, please allow me to be a channel of your wisdom and your love. Please allow me to be a channel of your wisdom and your love. And the other piece is, there is a God and I'm not it. And I laugh about that because a lot of times I play that role of God and I think I know what's right for people and I give them the advice and all that kind of stuff. And the truth is, no, there is something greater and I'm not it. And that's one of the most important pieces that has helped me be, I think, the most effective therapist that I can be, is to know that I am not God and that I am walking with this person, that I can feel with them, I can help to guide them. Clarity about what my clients need. Connected. When I connect, I can show courage, curiosity, and compassion. Remember, in my experience, my connectedness. I also pray every day before I work with my clients. So for me, I don't have to be religious because I'm not. I don't have to be religious to pray. It's about being able to stay connected. So I want to throw out right now, any questions that you have that you need to be answered, any questions that are coming up that you're curious about that need to be answered. And somebody else wrote their messages to be humble enough to know that I don't know everything. Humble enough to know that I don't know everything. How important is that in our work? Very, very important. Are there any questions that are up? We got about 25 more minutes. I thought we were going to be way over at about 20 after 12 now. So we got a lot more to cover. Okay, no questions are coming in. So I am going to go a little bit deeper into the IFS model, and I'd like you to just type in yes or no. If you'd like to hear a little bit more about this model, we can talk a little bit about exiles and protectors, and I have 2 yeses already. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, great. That's awesome. Thank you for okay. So what we'll do is we'll talk about protectors. And if I had a slide for that, I would do it, but I don't. So protectors. And you have it in your handout. Okay. Protector parts. They're born. They are created in order to protect the exile, the very wounded part, young parts of ourselves that carry all this pain. So, for example, I was just working with someone an hour ago, and the protector part this person identified was a fear of looking foolish in front of other people. A fear of looking foolish. So that part was born when this person was young, because this person had been humiliated very young over and over and over again. Was told what they were doing was wrong. How could they be doing that? Yelled at and shamed for who they were. So this part was born young. This part has been working for this person. This is the language. This is the IFS language. Working for this person 24/7. This person's in their 20s now. 24/7 for a long time. And what's happened is the person's behavior looks like this. Very reserved, very quiet, doesn't really stand up for themselves, isn't assertive, more passive, more isolated, inside, and extremely lonely. So the person said to me today, This is about safety. If I don't put myself out there, at least it's safe. So that says it right there of what Richard Schwartz was trying to get at, is that all these parts are trying to keep us safe. It makes sense in the internal system based on the history that this person had. The difference is now it's September 24th of 2020. So what he talks about is we have to update our protectors and our exiles, that it's September 24th, 2020. They are now in young adult bodies. They have more choices than they had before. They hopefully have more support than they had before, skills than they had before. So they can do this different. They can do this different. All right. So protectors, kind of an overarching term. Underneath protectors, we have managers and we have firefighters. So what the heck does that mean? So a manager is a part of me that controls. So I have a caretaker part, I have a controller, I have a fixer, I have a people pleaser, mediator. Those are our codependent roles in the codependency world. In IFS world, those are our managers. They make sure no feeling gets too overwhelming. Let's just keep it all okay. Let's just keep it all down. The firefighter. Oh my God, when those feelings come up, those flashbacks come up, that overwhelm comes up, I am going to shut it down. I am going to hose it with everything I have. That's a firefighter. That is the part of me that cuts, the part of me that burns, the part of me that drinks excessive alcohol, the part of me that is compulsive with sex, the part of me that compulsively eats or restricts or binges and purges. You getting my point? The part of me that shuts it down. It starts coming up, fights it. This is very powerful. Managers and firefighters are very powerful. Their job is, here's the line from them, the message: I will make sure you never feel this again. I will make sure you never feel this again. And that those protectors and managers are committed 100% to the job they are doing. And they have their blinders on. And they don't see how it negatively affects the other parts of the system. They know this is how it is, this is what I do, and I'm not going to stop. And these parts, as we know, are young also. They don't have an adult perspective. They don't have abstract thought. They don't see options. It's our job to help clients and for ourselves to be in those 8 C's so that we can assist them to see things like there are options. But they're not going to be able to see it unless there's compassion, unless there's clarity, unless there's connectedness, etc. All right, so does that stuff make sense so far? Any clarifying questions on managers and firefighters? Put it out there in the box if you have any clarifying questions. Say clear if it feels clear and you're ready to go on to the next thing so I know. Make sense, clear, 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 clear. All right, so we're going with clear. All right, our exile. We said our exile is the very young part that carries all that pain. Carries all that pain. Now, protectors carry pain, right? They carry a lot of fear. Protectors will say, if I'm not around, how is this person going to stay safe? This pain's going to show up. It'll never stop. It'll overwhelm them. I got to do my job. So we pull from the 8C of curious. And as a therapist, Richard Schwartz would say, we need to remain curious. Curious is the antidote for fear. If I'm curious about it, I don't have to be afraid of it. So, okay. So let's be curious together. That's IFS language. Let's be curious together. Would you be willing to be curious with me about this part of you? Would you be willing to be curious about this part of you? And then we can interview that part. And this is what I love about psychodrama, because we actually have somebody play the role of that part. And the person, what we call the protagonist, the client, can be in that role of part, can role reverse like you did with your 8C. And I can interview that person and I can say, so when were you born? What's your job? You've been working so hard. You want a break? Most times, protectors and firefighters, they want a break. They have been working so hard 24/7. So to say, you know what? We might be able to give you a little bit of a break. Richard Schwartz's words are softening and stepping to the side just a little bit so that we can use your strength, speaking to the protector, we can use your strength to help the client be able to manage these feelings. And I'm seeing some questions. Okay, so I do have it. They are repeated and only on page, not sure about that question. So we have definitions on your handouts of exiles, managers, firefighters. Okay, we have that, parts. So you can go there and you can get some of those definitions. But I want to get back. So we want to interview the protector. We want to find out and be curious. Okay, curious about them. When were they born? What is their job? Thank them. This is what I do often here with my clients. Identify the role they've played for you. They've helped you survive. Thank them. Thank you for helping me survive. The piece now is, I don't need you as much. I need your strength. I need your perseverance. I need your determination. But I don't need this fear or this caretaking all the time. So would you be willing to soften and step to the side? Just watch from the sidelines, like a football field. Watch from the sidelines. So if I really need you, you definitely come in. But I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try something else right now to see if I can still stay safe enough. And that's my term, not safe enough to be able to XYZ, whatever I need to do. Can I be safe enough to take that risk, to open up to my group, to open up to my therapist, to take the next step in setting a boundary, for example? Can I be safe enough? So this is the work that frees people. Now, the protectors, the managers, and the firefighters have a lot of fear. They're scared. If they're not active, this person will be overwhelmed. This person will be overwhelmed. So little bit by little bit, we get them to practice how they can do things different and not be overwhelmed. So the protectors go, oh, interesting. So I'm here on the sidelines. I get a break. I got a coffee break, maybe a week vacation. Maybe I get to resign at some point. I'm still here because I don't get killed off. No parts get killed off. We can't do that. But I can just lay back, and there's other pieces, other parts that can take this. Okay. So someone said it's really helping them understand themselves better, and I'm so glad. And Richard Schwartz, please go to that ifs-institute.com and read some more about it. I'm working with a client right now in this way, and it's just making such a difference for her. It's so normalizing. It's so validating. It's so non-pathologizing. And that's one of the reasons I love it so much. All right. So we got that. And the other piece that's important is, in terms of exiles, what I'm thinking of right now is one of the images that Dr. Schwartz uses with his clients in dealing with pain and flashbacks is creating a beautiful room where these flashbacks, this pain can be. A beautiful room where these pieces can be. And the room has windows, so we can see in. And it also has a door. Okay? It has a door that we can open up so that when we're ready to take one memory, to take a little bit of shame, to take a little bit of anger, to take a little bit of fear, that we can let out just a little bit of it. And we can work on that. So we can do it piecemeal rather than, oh my God, if I deal with shame, I'm just going to totally explode or just really go underneath the table because it's just going to be too much. He teaches us how to titrate. He teaches us how to take a little bit at a time, that we can do that and not be overwhelmed. So he has some videos on the website that I encourage you to watch. There's one in particular that you watch him do a full session of what he calls unburdening with a male veteran of, I believe it was Vietnam. And it was just mind-blowing for me, and it got me sold on this model to watch Dr. Schwartz do this work and the freedom that this gentleman had when it was finished. And to say, he didn't do it in one session. This person had been in IFS therapy for quite a while and was at a point that he was ready to do this unburdening. So it takes time, and it's very doable, very doable. So I have a question. Can you repeat this interviewing psychodrama more than once with a client? We can do as many times as necessary. That's going to be assisting that client in getting clarity, in feeling more connected with their parts, and being in those 8 C's, because those 8 C's are there for protectors, for managers, and firefighters just as much as for exiles. I hope that's helpful. So again, it's just about 20 after now. I have 18 after 12. Are there any other questions as we went a little bit deeper into this model? Any other questions that are coming up for you that are important to answer? Anybody else? And as you're thinking about that and or writing about that, I'm going to ask you, if you don't have any other questions, I'm going to ask you to think about, just for a moment, think about how you might use a piece of this for yourself or with a client. How would you use this, knowing you're not an IFS certified therapist? And be honest, I am not either. I've done a lot of trainings, but I am not certified, and that's important to tell you. So what does it feel, what feels realistic, what feels ethical, what feels healing to be able to do with this model that you know right now with a client of yours, with yourself, so that you can be successful? Take a moment and think about that. And I'd like you to even visualize it for a moment, that you're doing it, and to see how it feels. And I'm looking at a question right now. I want to just give you, everybody else, I'd like you to breathe again. We'll go for a question in a moment, but I'd like you to notice this. To take your breath, take your in through the nose, hold, out through the mouth or nose, slower breath. Stay or return to that optimal zone, that thinking and feeling at the same time. This is how we're going to get it integrated in our learning. Okay. And there's a question here. Do you ever confront the parts you are protecting? So do you ever confront those parts the parts you are protecting? I'm not sure what the confront means. What we do is we stay curious, we stay compassionate, we try to stay connected the best we can with all of our parts, and be able to say things like, I'm curious about, and I'm letting you know what's not working. If that means confrontation, okay. But we're with gentleness and kindness, because if we're not, then parts go in fear, parts get rigid, and parts will resist. And that's not what we want at all. And resistance, just a side note, resistance in psychodrama, the definition which I love is, definition of resistance in psychodrama is there is no such thing as resistance. There is only an incomplete warm-up, which means things that have to happen for me to be ready to do it and do it different haven't happened yet. Okay? So there is no such thing as resistance. There's only an incomplete warm-up. So if I think about that for my clients, it's not you're resistant, there's something wrong with you, you're not. It's, interesting. I'm curious, as the therapist, what isn't happening yet for this person that they're ready to do the behavior different? Is there something for me that I can do to facilitate this person's warm-up? So it puts it back on me a little bit to be more creative and thinking about it rather than pointing the finger at the person where they're just resistant. So I'd offer food for thought on that one. And then for myself personally, it lets me off the hook a little bit and I don't beat myself up when I say, you know what, I'm not warmed up yet. I'm not there yet. So I'm curious about what it's going to take for me to be warmed up enough to change this behavior. Okay. 12-step program, since we are an addictions treatment center here and I work with many addicts who are trauma survivors. I say, you're not going to, if you hit bottom, right, you're not going to do it different until you hit bottom. Pray for the willingness to be willing to be willing. All of these things are about warm-up, and it's going to take what it takes. All right, so I'm an EMDR and CBT trained. I could use what I practice with all my clients. Most important, I could do it to myself. Isn't that the case? Okay. Always present myself as human with suffering, pain, and issues as well. Okay. And I want to say one thing about that is many years ago, I was working with a client and she came in and she was talking about something with her marriage. And I really felt it. And I felt my part, my hurt part, be present. And I learned enough to pray, breathe, and stay with her, be the professional. But I went to my supervisor afterwards, and I called my supervisor and said, no, I can't believe this. This person came in, was talking about something I was dealing with in therapy like a week or two ago. I said, I don't know if I can work with this person. I might have to refer them out. And my supervisor said, you're a week or two ahead of them. You can still do it. So I offer that to you. As long as I'm doing my personal work, that I can work, as long as I have experience, strength, and hope, and I'm doing my personal work and getting consultation, I can do my work. And when I'm in consultation, it can get clear. Here's your clarity. It can get clear to me whether I can continue or whether I really do need to refer this person. So yes, I'm human. I want my clients to know I'm human. And we work through that stuff. And there are some times when there's too many triggers and I do need to refer somebody out because there's somebody better who can work with them. And what Dr. Schwartz says is it's my job to get to know my parts, to be connected with my parts so that my self-energy is the most that shows up in those sessions. And that when my parts get triggered, that I can note that I can let them know I'll address them at a later time, and that I get back to them, that I'm committed to that, I don't abandon them, so that they don't come out in a session sideways, like telling someone what they should do. For example, my caretaker coming out. All right. So we are at 11:26. Let's see if there's any other questions. Helping destigmatize past actions and thoughts. Yes, that's exactly what IFS does. During this pandemic, this is a good one too. Let's hear from this person. So during this pandemic, how else can I tell myself that is soothing and comforting to avoid feeling anxious and agitated? I can tell myself this is a good experience in resiliency and self-creativity, learning new ways of coping. Instead of living anxiously, I play the piano and love the moment and moments. Exactly. That's exactly it. Exactly it. And staying in the moment as much as possible. Gratitude, I'd love to be a C, one of those C's. I do a gratitude list every day, and that is a very, very big help for me in terms of attitude adjustment. How does this work end? if ever? What markers do you have that the patient can do the work alone? Well, I would say the work never ends. I'm continuing to know more about my parts. I'm continuing to work with my parts. I feel like I have more cooperation amongst my parts today than I did many years ago. And I could tell you that I've been on and off in therapy since I was 14, and I'm going to be 58. So that is a long time. And I'm a believer in tune-ups. So I'm in therapy, and then I go on my own and I fly a little bit, and then something happens, life gets tough again, and I need some more support, so I come back, and that's kind of the model I talk to my clients about. And for them to do it alone, it's when their exiles have been mostly unburdened, and they're living in that spontaneity and creativity and the moment, that they are not living in the past. The past is not running them. Let them fly a little bit. That's what's happening with a client of mine right now. I'm saying, you know what? I'm being a mom. I'm being a good mom. It's time for you to fly a little bit. And you need more support, then you either come back or you go to somebody else. I live in the moment of music, happiness, and joy. And I think also with challenging times right now, it's so important to validate that there is anger, there is fear, there is anxiety. If we deny it, no way are we going to be able to deal with it. So acknowledge it, and that's what I do with my clients. There's just so much anxiety you will be able to calm yourself from. It's about being able to manage what number, 0 to 10. What number is going to be realistic? For me, right now, about a 4 is about as low as I can get. And it's manageable for me. And it's just validating that that's what it is. These times are tough, so I don't have to pathologize it. And that's what I have today. We are at 12:29. I want to thank you so much for being with me and with us this afternoon, taking your time out to show up and be a part of this. I'm wishing you all to be more in touch with your 8Cs, to concretize them, to thank them right now in front of you for being present. Take these, hang out with these for today. Concretize them as much as you want. It might be a morning ritual for you to do to start your day, to anchor in that those 8Cs are present for you. So thank you so much, and wishing you all the best health, safety, and continuing to continue. Take good care until next time.